That's the question. Here's the drum.
I'm gonna try it again.
Like my 2-year-old daughter's like trying to like hold on to my leg. I'm like, there's gotta be a better way to do that.
This is like, stop. It's like, always my God.
So I had to ride a
Don't
bus.
give me the PR question. Yeah, it was good. It's been a day.
Okay,
Thanks, we
got it.
Smell, that is the PR company that is doing the application. So that's the thing is that.
We need too much.
What?
We need 9.
We have 17, so we need 9 more.
What I realized.
But I don't know if-
No,
we need what is it,
17,
17?
so
That was interesting about it.
I think
So
we said,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we need 2 more.
Whatever, you'll notice that the PR agencies.
it's
want
okay, I'm
to
going back
study the other
over.
thing. Stay on calls for longer, and then they leave. They're just like.
We're not
using
doing
it to
online,
learn
so I don't need to do the, we're waiting.
No, and no one. I mean, Tiffany's here and the other folks who would qualify for him. No longer, I'm gonna take that. Oh, here's you.
I also, don't wanna get too far into the agenda before Sundar gets here, it's really payment time, so we need someone to present, Teeny, just T.
Just you.
Just T. Or get the budget update, so,
I can always go first, but I think more people should be here for the bylaw thing, but
Think when you wanna start.
yeah, let's,
For you when you're ready.
we need one more technical.
wait till 6:05.
See you tomorrow.
Hey, guys.
That'd be really helpful.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, let's put it.
Just a courtesy of.
See you tomorrow.
Auto reply would be nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, to get started, we're gonna. Hello, everyone. This is the executive committee of Manhattan Community Board 5. We are gonna give people a couple more minutes to join and then we'll get started.
That I did everything else.
I'll say, Captain.
I got it all.
I think it's a real difference.
Yeah, they're ready, like, here's what we voted on.
Yeah,
Here's generally what was
Is there a reason why you're in attendees? Did I promote?
No, I don't know. Do I need to share anything? I mean,
No.
I guess I'm presenting instead of Bellhead, but they're, yeah, I'm fine now. I was like, let me just be on it, in case you need me, but. But I don't, so I'm gonna log out of that. No, I'm just on my computer screen right now anyways, it's full of a lot of things and busy with. Wedding dresses. Yeah, weddings, not for, no. Oh,
I was like, congrats.
I'm 15 years in, that's old, that's old. No, and two
I
nephews
was like,
getting
who's
married.
there?
Well, officially never, well, I guess maybe that, because we officially never did get married, so. The two nephews getting married and fancy weddings and multiple events, so. Oh, geez. I couldn't even sleep last night. I think I did that till like 3 last night. I just, when you're so, okay, you can't make a decision.
Let's get started. We'll go a little bit out of order from what we have on the agenda for the full board. So for, I guess, Milan, when you listen to this later, we'll be going in order of the, agenda that Marisa put together. But we'll get started with landmarks.
Landmarks only had one application this month, this cycle. It was the Brill Building, which is on the corner of Broadway and very important line, sorry, right on the near the heart of Times Square. There's an application to install a marquee above the retail space in the first floor on the Broadway side facade. The new tenant is gonna be the escape room. they're promoting one of their new features, which is actually called the Great Game Show. It's gonna be an illuminated sign within the storefront display. It does not, overall, it does not fit the character or the landmark nature of the building at all, but it is Times Square. So the resolution or the applicant's, proposal was passed unanimously. With a vote of, sorry, 11 people.
Great. Conflicts? Questions? Comments? Your word. All right, we're gonna skip transportation and go to parks.
Okay, we go. It's in the physical copy. Okay, so first we have an update on the fires. That happened in, Bryant Park and 34th Street, except that we were expecting 34th Street update, we got a 34th Street update. But so a lot of what was promised at the winter meeting, they came back with, and Urban Space has done a really good job of being very detailed. And very thorough in the types of safety measures that they're taking. They've got rated. We got more details about the fireproofing between the stalls for all the cooking. The details are really thorough in the letter. But our big takeaways were that, for things that are still outstanding that we'd hoped to be able to write a full resolution as opposed to providing an update. Is for an actual evacuation plan and sort of the logistics of there is a fire. What happens next in like a very sort of pedantic, just order of operations. And we did not get that and we pushed on it and were not met with sort of logical answers, which we were pretty upset about. So we're gonna have them come back, because they've got to come back anyway, for the 34th Street holiday market in Herald Square, which we did not hear anything about either. The fires, just as a reminder, were on two different causes. 34th Street was an electrical fire. So Bryant Park really focused on a lot of the cooking safety elements, but the electrical we're also really concerned about. But Urban Space has been a very good partner. But our bigger concern is that as good as Urban Space is, and as good as their SOPs are, our real concern is citywide and, you know, like district-wide, but really it's all of these sort of temporary, but like longish term, high density, like structures that are essentially like houses and superior things at a certain point. So we would really like to have more like citywide agencies cooperation. We unfortunately were unable to have the fire department weigh in because of technical difficulties. And so we're asking for an actual plan again. And we also really would like exit signs, which feels, you know, pretty basic, but those are sort of how they take away from this. And the rest of it's sort of in there, but we really want to make sure that if we're bringing all of these tourists to these places for a very sustained, long period of time, that it's safe. And so we hope in the fall of spring, we'll have Bryant Park Corporation, this was managed by the city of 34th Street, come back with a plan. We also hope to both like make them sold and then participate in and launch the evacuation run through with fire department. There were some concerns about not being able to find the fire hydrants and not being able to get through all of the routes and stuff with the fire hoses at 34th Street, which is concerning. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen again, certainly before we approve that any sort of programming. But that winter programming started, it opened at Bryant Park on October 25th. So based on our mini cycle and just the schedule of our meetings, we need that to happen basically immediately. So we're gonna really try to push on making sure that it's safe, because 2 fires in 10 days is too many fires. So yeah, that's sort of that. We get the questions answered about that.
Questions? Comments?
Alright, so the next one is a like Fashion Week pop-up. This is for an event that's on in Bryant Park on the Fountain Terrace, the western entrance. The primary entrance to the park is wider. The 5 foot lay elevation. The biggest concern the committee had with this we had a lot of concerns. We're having the back to talk about activations in general, separate conversation. But our biggest concern here was about the amount of physical space to pass beyond either side of this activation. This sort of sits at the top of that terrace area. And we were concerned about the amount of queuing that's happening. It's gonna be, our dermatologist, skin products, they don't spend a lot of letter because it's putting a group coat, put the skin products in. So people will walk away with that. But our main concerns had to do with general, like the activation in general, space, signage, and you can see the site plan is included. It's not really drawn to scale, but because you can see the queuing lines themselves also create an additional barrier and obstacle to getting beyond that, sort of take that for a big part of it. But we like they were responsive on the signage, because it hasn't been totally defined yet, so it can be a little bit more. Sorry.
Any comments? Questions? Any comments?
Yeah.
You're on.
Can you, you just said that Brian Park's gonna be coming back to talk about activations in general.
Yeah.
Can you just tell the board that? There seems to be a lot of juice around that. Like, it seems to be something that's come up in the last few board meetings. I think the board would just like to hear that update, that like Brian Park is coming back to talk about activations. Stay tuned.
Yes.
I mean, is that fair? I think
Yeah.
the board would like to hear that. Okay.
That's probably a good idea.
We can mention the data aspect.
Yes, so that is actually an update, though I have not actually, I can chase the numbers down for details of it. We are also asking, but maybe I can look the whole board and maybe they will also have asks. We're trying to get more data around what actually happened in the park.
Great.
What the income is per like people visiting. There's been a lot of pushback from Bryan Park Corporation on giving us stuff that in theory they should have.
I don't know that you need to get into all that. If you like, we've asked for data and they will be coming back. That's my update. I think that would be great.
I mean, we've been trying to get it and they've not been forthcoming, so like it's.
Totally. I don't know if the board needs to know that at that point. I just think like update.
Just so that this doesn't become a discussion about that and not about the resolution.
Exactly.
But a good idea.
Which is-
yeah,
it's just-
the
it's the
flag
head
that's
off.
coming. Exactly.
It's to head off the ongoing conversation that we seem to have every time there's a Brian Park.
Well, a lot of those members are now on the committee, so that.
Great.
That conversation happened at the committee. Even though it was still meant to happen in September, so. Not to worry, but yes, that very much an
Right.
ongoing conversation.
Thank you.
I have a comment.
Oh, yes.
I will say it is a nonprofit, so their 990s are public. And so I just pulled up, this is old, this is like their 2022. But it has how much they spent on Winter Village, how much it cost. Park maintenance, they spent about 3 million. So it's got like a lot of content as well, but I think there was like that misunderstanding about corporation in the title, which is inaccurate
Yes,
because it is
totally.
a 501c3.
Right.
So,
I think some of the upset has a lot to do with actually those reports have also been.
well, yeah.
So
I mean, the
to be
CEO 's
discussed
not-
as of.
Yeah, the committee, I
Yeah.
trust the committee
Yeah.
will do a
But,
great job with all of that.
A good note to bring down that conversation is to be continued later on.
Yes. There are many we referred to those. Okay, so this one was also controversial because it is something that Bryan Park is doing. But it's also the committee, it's an additional sort of movie night, except that instead of a movie, it's two different, two episodes of The Summer I Turned Pretty. So it's an AWS, sort of like presentation for that. It's gonna be a premiere of those episodes. So there's gonna be a VIP access area. They're gonna do ticketing. We're doing it through Eventbrite, so we wanted to make sure that they disclosed and found out what their data retention policy is to make sure that when people are getting these free tickets, that it's not Amazon paying on that information. We also had concerns about like the level of signage and sort of like square footage of that, again, either side of the thing, of the screen. And then we also requested that there be an additional sort of handicap city area off to the side. A little bit closer to the screen, for variety, as opposed to just being the farthest away from the screen. So that it is more similar to what traditional sort of, any auditorium would have to be ADA compliant. And so we also, in our discussion, there's sort of a balancing act between who to supply to. It may bring different viewers, a different segment of viewers who may not be otherwise drawn to the park for reasons. And we like that, but also balanced with, if you haven't seen seasons 1 and 2, this may not really appeal to you. So, what benefit is that, in comparison with, they canceled a yoga event, that is one of their large scale events, that is a free, like, they're all free, but it's a basic program thing, and they've canceled that to do this thing to make money. And then also it came up that like the winter village is really big for money. I think the people sort of like, but because it complied with all this other stuff, it's all sort of the infrastructure is basically there already for those movie nights. That was part of why. That and a lot of the folks, is part of why it's had
Any comments? Any questions? Any comments?
Your something to buy, get VIP passes.
Yeah.
That nobody requested that during our meeting, actually, so I don't know. I feel like that might be a conflict of interest for the institution for an opportunity, but they wanted to.
Especially this trying to hold PVC accountable.
But pro quo. Yeah. So, that was that. Okay, so the next one is a little weird. So it's the Madison Square Park Conservancy. It's an IBM activation of, the US Open, like screening. So they have screened, Madison Square Park has screened the US Open. The last time that I could find it happened was 2015. Sort of terrifying, the difference between how it was done then in a way that was like not open to the public. It was restricted to like American Express card holders. It resulted in a bunch of crowds of people that couldn't get in. For all of the north end of the park, it drained the reflecting pool. This is better than that. But we were still concerned about the level of signage. Technically, before you apply for a permit in parks, you need to articulate exactly how many signs that you have and how big they will be. There's no minimum or maximum sort of stuff around that. There are a couple of things, but mostly it has to be specific. If it's not specific in your application, someone might go up and be like, get rid of it, and that's completely legal and fine. That is just something to be aware of. But so we asked for the signs, and that's why we don't have sort of explicit stuff in our language that says what size things need to be. The reason that signage came up is because the application for their last activation did not discuss any signage that would not be sort of small, like a museum. And instead, we ended up with the billboard, and the discrepancy between the application and the questionnaire process and all conversations around it, and then what actually happened led to not great feelings. So there was conversation about that. The one couple interesting things is that IBM is a new tenant in the Madison Square area. And so a lot of these applications came from neighbors who are on the park, which is something the city is generally sort of liked. Sort of increasing the investment in that park space, but making sure that it still remains a passive park. So some of the it's going to be a table tennis activation because IBM does the AI line stuff, so you get to play these table tennis things. They revealed in the middle of the meeting that they would donate these table tennis things, unclear to who within the district, but that is something that they have promised to do. And then we did have a member of the public come and asked a great question that they said that they would look into, is to see whether or not the advertisements on the broadcast of the US Open would be muted during the commercial breaks, because that is additional advertising that isn't even the advertising of the thing that we're doing the part for. So it's really just gonna be during those 2 times of day. They're gonna turn off all sound at 10 p.m. It'll be quiet after that point. It is a longer duration event for that much noise and amplified sound, was another question. But because the public tends to like sporting events in general and sort of public viewing, that was something that was also discussed. But the signage was definitely a question. There was nothing specific around that. And it was also unclear based on the renderings if it would be illuminated signage or not. And then they assured us that it would not be illuminated. So that is why that made that into resolution, even though it's sort of older.
Any conflicts? Any questions?
I have a
Yeah.
question, Libby. So, it's making me think of something that came up in our SLAP meeting, where the festival that Parks approved, the Nomad Jazz Festival,
Yeah,
they came to us about, they're collaborating with a number of restaurants who are gonna be playing live music. And some of it will be indoors, which relates to changing the method of operation for the liquor licenses that we issue, but some of them will be outdoors. And that shouldn't be coming to us, should it? I mean, that should be going to you, or does
So-
that go to NYTD?
I need to go back to, that original resolution, not the resolution, I need to go back to the questionnaire. I don't think that we were asked about or told about any like wine, beer, alcohol, beverage stuff. It was specifically about the programming.
Mhm.
So I was surprised to hear about that because I think that, like, there was no, like, there's maybe an alcohol kiosk in that questionnaire initially. So I don't think that was raised and then came from us.
It's really about the outdoor music.
Oh, okay.
The outdoor music part we saw, but
Oh,
because,
okay.
but so that, but the alcohol, yeah, but the alcohol and the plaza, but the alcohol piece of that, so if like in the past, Bryant Park has done different Winter Village activations that involve alcohol. There have been prior members of this board who have been very opposed to alcohol being served in a public place, like for free, for any reason. But when it comes to like alcohol being served or sold, outside of that, I need to check to see what it is, but I don't think that that's something that came across our desk as far as in their questionnaire. And we did ask if they were gonna serve beer, like food or beverages, was part of that, and they said that they were gonna sell merchandise, which we're like honestly a little bit more lenient with, because it seemed to be with the nonprofit as opposed to a commercial selling of merchandise. But that was really the only reason why we said they could sell merchandise, because our policy says not sell merchandise, we sell stuff. We're pretty specific, I can't sell stuff. But the wine and beer piece of it is definitely something that we did not. Which I was confused when I got that question from you guys, so that's a bigger kind of piece of it,
Let's take the.
but yeah.
Give you days to turn offline.
Yeah.
Did you have a question or comment?
It was
just. Alright. Questions? Comments? Okay. That's solid, right? None at all? Okay, we'll go back to transportation.
Alright. Flip back. Alright. Fifth Avenue. So the Fifth Avenue, bid and CD and the tops of the public realm and a bunch of people came to our committee meeting to present on the future of Fifth plan that would basically redo Fifth Avenue between what the streets are already. What is that? 42nd to Central Park South. Great. But yeah, they came to present. They have a very interesting plan that'll cost $400 million. The city is paying for. The high level of why they want to do it is because it's twofold, really. They have a lot of infrastructure improvements that needs to do anyways. And while they're doing it, they also want to remake the streetscape, which includes, putting a real focus on pedestrians. The big thing that they kept saying was, we have a lot of pedestrians at Fifth Avenue. We don't have a lot of space for them. So that's why they wanted to do this project. Fifth Avenue is also a key corridor for MTA buses, including 7 local routes, 34 express routes. And a lot of those buses, especially the express ones, don't actually have people on them, or the ridership is not that high. It's just that if you're looking for a north to south corridor inside of Manhattan, on the east side, Fifth Avenue is the longest one, so a lot of them go there. Let's see what else is important. They have a goal of having this construction start in 2028, Q1 2028, so we still have some time. And important context is in 2021, the DOT presented a plan for Fifth Avenue from 57th to 34th Street that would have it would have been, I guess, a temporary plan with this, plan in the works. But it would have added it would have, added some turn restrictions, so it would have turned it more into a busway similar to 14th Street or what we've asked for on 34th or 42nd. It would have added a bike lane and then also expanded pedestrian space. So it would have done all those things, not as much pedestrian space as the final plan that Future Fifth is proposing. So we wrote a resolution saying that we support the Future Fifth plan and had 8 conditions that we would like to see. The first one is to take the proposal from 2021 off the shelf and implement it immediately. When that plan was presented to us, we were told it would take on the order of a few months to implement. So if they get on that now, it could be implemented by the fall of 2025, and then it would be in place for 2 years while we wait for the finalization of the plan, the Future Fifth plan that would be starting construction 2028. Public restrooms, we all talk about it all the time. We would like to see some public restrooms. We'd like to see additional refuse bins, trash recycling. We would like to see street furniture and bus shelters, so that way shoppers and bus riders can be sheltered while they wait. And that the MTA.
Keep going.
Keep on, all right. The MTA should undertake a study to try to figure out how we can reduce the number of underutilized express buses that act as a barrier to shoppers. We would like to see a real solution to the bike and pedestrian safety issue on Fifth Avenue in their final design to make sure that pedestrians feel safe and bikers have somewhere to go when they're going north to south. That the entire street bed should be leveled out for the entire project instead of having it still have a dip and then back up for the street bed. Similar to how they're doing the piazzas, just the whole thing. And then we want to see additional opportunity for the public to give comment prior to the final certification by the Department of Design and Construction. The reason for that one is that they did have a meeting where the public could go opine. I did that, I know David did that, a couple of other people did that, and I saw lots of people there. But when asked if they implemented any of the suggestions that the public had that they got from that meeting, they said that they did not. So we want another opportunity to provide so they can know our saying.
Yeah, conflicts, questions.
Did you consider, adding additional information about sort of environmental resiliency and more plants and trees and general like outdoorsy things? Since, those parts of the street furniture and greenery, and I remember the original renderings, they tried to emphasize that. I'm just wondering, but why that language didn't make it in here.
We try to keep our resolution short at transportation, so that's why I did not have it there. There are a lot of trees in the proposal. There is a lot of environmental resiliency. One specific thing that they told us was that for the street bed, or sorry, for the trees, they're actually all connected under the pavers. So it's gonna absorb a lot more water just because there's a lot more ground space for it, but we didn't feel like that was necessary for ground.
I would like to see the resiliency language in this.
As
Because
a-
it was such a, like, as like an emphasis of approving it or like enjoying that piece of it since it was like a big part. of-
I mean, no one brought it up at the committee meeting, but if you want to make an amendment at full board, I'm sure people will be fine.
Yeah, we're not putting it tonight, but if you wanna address some language now, please. Consider that.
Yeah, I'm looking in our website, I'm not finding it. What did this board say in 2021 to the temporary plan?
In September 2021, this is on the whereas from 177 to 181.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
No, don't worry about it. The New York Fire recommends approval of. DOT
Oh, there it is.
proposal.
Yep, sorry, okay. Thank you.
Uh,
On the turn restrictions, which I know were topical at the last board meeting, do you know like what streets you can turn off as? And I remember I live on 55th Street and 55th is one of the streets, but it's always like kind of best because the 2 big hotels are there already, so it's like already kind of hectic.
I don't remember which specific intersections they had planned for the turn restrictions in the 2021 plan, but I can definitely get that to you. I know that the plan was to, if I remember correctly, was to have as many vehicles as possible turn off either on, I forget if it's on 57, 56, 58, one of them, and then, and not allow cars to go through unless they had, local needs.
Any other questions?
Sorry, I have no question.
Sure.
It may come up and you may want to include as part of your presentation. I'm wondering why it's now 4 years since the 2021 plan. It has now been implemented.
Yeah.
Is that because it can't be, like, why has it not been implemented yet?
Do you want the answer now, or do you want the answer?
I guess let's save it. I would. Okay,
It's a teaser,
Okay, so September 2021, we had an election. And the mayor at the time, or we had an election in November. But the mayor at the time, Bill de Blasio, decided to punt it to the next administration,
Right.
promising that it would happen. The new mayor was elected and decided that he didn't want to do any temporary improvements and that he would have just do the big future of the plan.
got it.
So that's where we are now.
And that mayor is still mayor,
That mayor is currently.
but may not be in January. I see.
But my.
Who's to say?
Who's to say? Okay.
At the time, the Fifth Avenue Association bitterly opposed the plan.
Yeah.
And they asked for, a moratorium while they did raise money and did an independent study and came up with their own proposal. So what you're seeing is sort of a compilation
Of
of
the two.
city and
Yep.
Fifth Avenue plans come
Okay.
together.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. I remember, I think Marissa, were you on the call? It was like me and EJ about a year and a half ago. They presented this. I thought they were coming back last summer, but here we are, so.
Okay.
It's made a lot of progress though, so that's great news.
Yeah, we
Thanks,
were
Gunnar.
a little surprised. Or surprised is the right word. But we expected to hear back from the plan before their big press conference announcing the 30% design. However, we only got an invitation to come to the press conference
Mm.
without knowing what
nice.
it was going to look like.
Didn't we have a presentation on this in like December?
We were co-hosts of a presentation, if I recall.
That was,
Oh,
much,
okay.
much emailing when I went into,
No, this was something different.
this is the thing that Samir was talking about, that public session.
Yeah.
Where technically,
No, this wasn't a public session.
Yeah.
It was just a meeting with all of the agencies.
It was a briefing for
Yeah.
chairs of
Yeah.
parks and transportation, when they first started thinking about the plan. And then they should have come back to us.
And they did, yeah,
A
that's
couple
what
of
I
times
remember.
in between,
I was surprised with how fast it was, so I was like, what happened?
any other questions? Comments? Okay. And then we will do land use for the special guest presenter.
So land use. What do we have? We really only had one, letter, one resolution, which was 1551 Broadway. So it's part of Times Square. They really just want to update their signage, and, to update their signage, they have to request a zoning text amendment and a special permit. The zoning text amendment very broadly is needed because the current zoning text does not cover lot sizes of under 5,000 square feet. And the special permit is because of the new signage that they want to put up. So it's really a two-story building. The upper story has a slight setback versus the lower story. And so they want to bring it all, they want to put a sign that is basically covers both the stories, goes around. As opposed to what they have currently, which is they have a sign at the lower story and they have another one at the upper story, and the upper one is kind of outdated. So the new signage that they're gonna have is basically allows them to render 3D renderings and whatnot. It's gonna be snazzy. It's in Times Square. There was a lot of pushback from the committee. There's also going to be a tower which they're building as of right, which would also have signage. So the overall signage square footage goes from 13,000 and change, yeah, so 14,000 to like 22,000, of which 7,000 is as of right, the new tower that's going up. So really, it's just an additional like 1,000 and change square foot, and that is because the setback is going to go away and then the signage is gonna go all around. They're not getting any new floor area. So there's gonna be a slight empty space between the signage and where the building ends.
Comment? Questions? I have a question. Did they say anything about their anticipated energy use change, like from their old, which is smaller but older technology
Yeah.
versus bigger and newer?
So I don't believe that it came up, the energy usage came up, but they did say that the new lighting is more state of the art, so it's more efficient. So I don't know what the total
Yeah,
consumption is,
they did that math, but
but it is going to be brighter. So there's a trade-off there. Yeah, I don't know what the total. They've already.
yeah, I came in at the end. for
So
that,
excited
but-
about it.
Yeah, just curious. Okay. I'm curious already. Any other
3D, like,
questions?
bottle,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a lot about Nick in
Comments?
his presentation.
All right. Any comments? Okay, and then are you prepared to talk about the letter for?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So the Manhattan Plan, the DCP is seeking feedback on the Manhattan Plan. What is the Manhattan Plan? It's really the overall plan for the borough of Manhattan to increase housing by, I think, 100,000 units. How they came up with 100,000 units is unclear. I think it's just 500,000 overall, and they divided by 5, it's 100,000 our share.
That's a proposal.
Highland's gonna give their 100.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean, that's, so they're basically seeking feedback, community feedback right now. So while the plan is not going to be finalized up until the end of the year, there are public hearing sessions that are ongoing. I believe on the website, there's like 7 or 8 that have already happened. We wanted to get them part of our feedback right away, which included 2 MSMX resolutions. So the original MSMX approval and then the Prince of Agreement. Just as a starting point, really. And also because we kind of want to make a point that they seem to be ignoring our feedback on MSMX. So that was my understanding, but it's a jumping off point.
Comments? Questions? You're on.
I'm thinking maybe there should be a comment only because we're not, well, I'll ask this question. You mentioned we wanted to get them our feedback as soon as possible. I was not at the meeting. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but I've watched it. I am concerned, this is a question, I promise. I am concerned about splitting our feedback like this procedurally and you know, whether it undermines us, et cetera. So can you talk a little bit more about why we are splitting our feedback into 2 different resolutions 2 months apart, as opposed to doing a single resolution saying, here are our ideas, here are the mitigating factors, and we're annoyed at you for not listening to us. Like, what is actually the value of 2 resolutions here? It seems deeply confusing to me.
I don't think I have a good answer for that, but I think what the committee decided was that all this work had been put into coming up with those 2 resolutions, so we wanted to get it out there saying, here, guys, you came to us for feedback on something, and we put all this, blood and sweat into coming up with these resolutions, and then you kind of, ignored it.
And why can't we say that in September when there's no deadline we're up against?
I think because we think that this would probably be an input into something that we can, with more honed feedback, could make more of an impact. That was my take on it.
I have a comment, but I will wait. Thank you.
So this letter is addressed to DCP. And when we wrote our resolutions, but I guess my question is, in the ULURP process, once it's certified, DCP doesn't really take feedback, like City Planning Commission takes feedback, our council members take feedback. So why are we saying that DCP is ignoring us? Like, it's not their job to respond to our resolutions. Like, I thought the whole point of writing our points of agreement in that fashion was because we knew that the council member was the one that would look at the points of agreement.
Yeah, the points of agreement, my understanding is wasn't even going to the DCP. That was not the audience for them.
Okay, but we're gonna send that to them as well.
That is also part of the feedback that's going to them. Yes, it's feedback on the Manhattan Plan overall. Because MSMX is part of the Manhattan Plan.
So yeah, I guess that's another question I have. The 100,000 units includes MSMX?
Yes,
Under.
How are we sure that it includes MSMX?
that was,
I don't think they said that.
No, I watched the meeting. They said they didn't know, or they
Yeah.
gave actually kind of an evasive answer on that. I
oh,
think.
my understanding.
I
was
think,
that-
I mean, other people were there.
But we were, I think the committee was a little bit like, okay, great, we just did this thing, we just gave you how to do it. Like, here's the resolution, like, per my last email, like, here, hi.
But it's,
Was sort of the reaction of like land use to being like, hi, we talked about this.
Yeah.
But then there's also discussion of what the request for the Manhattan plan is really for, like, not like the presentation was really like, we want out of the box, crazy, innovative, figure out how to do stuff. And so like the committee was also asked like, okay, now you have to go think of crazy innovative stuff if you want to do something that's beyond just saying we did MSMX here.
So this is
So
a good
this is
conversation.
good,
I just want to make sure we're not doing something we're gonna do again in 2 days. So if there are questions sort of about the resolution in terms of the way we're gonna present it, let's keep going, but I want to kind of keep the substantive things for Thursday.
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just gonna provide comment, even though Nancy and Julie aren't here, but I've also emailed them about this. I intend to offer a motion at full board to table this, to combine it with the September resolution. To me, and I just want to explain that to this group very, very succinctly. DCP came to us and they said, what are your ideas to build 100,000 new homes in Manhattan? Our response was, we're gonna respond to you in two parts. First, by sending to you our ideas about specific land use and zoning regulations in 4 particular tracts in Manhattan, which is not really the relevant response, and the mitigations, which I think is the important response that we think we need that go along with the 100,000 units. I say we just combine those and say, here are ideas to build 100,000 units in Manhattan, and here are the mitigations we think we need to make that happen into a single resolution. To me, this is disjointed and undermines our voice and makes us look disordered. So I just plan to offer that motion.
Any other questions?
Oh, sorry, I thought you
You're
were
fine. Okay, any other comments? Okay. All right, I think that's all the resolutions. Now we'll go to the budget. All right, go ahead. Oh, yeah,
Sorry, I wasn't sure. Was I supposed to give you an update on
You're right.
swap?
I
Or
apologize.
do I
So-
not? We didn't have any voting.
Yeah, you're right. There are no agenda items, so let's do the CSQL and the SLAP. Apologies for skipping over those. So if you want to give an update of
Okay,
those meetings, but and then.
Okay, I'll
I
be
think
brief.
Seth
So-
emailed me and I said I'd leave it to his sort of discretion if you wanted to give an update at
okay.
full board or not.
So we had no voting items. We did have a presentation from the Nomad Partnership on the upcoming Nomad Jazz Festival, which I mentioned. So, the festival is partnering with a bunch of restaurants where they will be playing live jazz, mostly indoors and some outdoors. So they are reviewing, all the restaurants' licenses and determining who needs to apply for what, and they will be bundling them and bringing them back to us. We also have an upcoming application which looks to be problematic or contentious for changes to method of operation for a very large restaurant by Union Square called Mission Ceviche. We have not posted our public notices yet, but we're already receiving a lot of comments from residents. So the application's been assigned and we will be holding a community meeting later this month to attempt to bring the sides together, and we'll be reviewing the application at our meeting in August. And next month, we will also be reviewing the restrictive licensing area task force that Yaron led, which concluded its work, and we may be, considering changing the terms of the RLA, and so that may be coming to the board for resolution. And finally, we had our orientation for our 5 new members. And we had Yaron and some of the older, Samir and the older members, senior members present, and it went well. And I think we have some juicy items for the new members to jump into right away with this community meeting next month.
Thank you.
So we didn't have any.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
So at last full board, we had, I think, 3 or 4 members of the public speak about an application. I think it's 913 Broadway. Do you recall that?
No.
Okay, so at our last, you were there. So our last full board, I'm just wondering, is that something that's on our radar? Like, I don't.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's something that wasn't on the agenda.
No, they jumped down a bit.
Oh,
They're thinking that a restaurant's going to go in place.
oh, there's no actual
There's
application.
Nothing has come in
Okay.
yet, so
Thank you.
you're being preemptive
Got
in
it.
their
Being
objection.
engaged,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really engaged.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what my question was, is there actually an
We don't know what
application? Okay, there is not an actual.
I think it is the same location as that.
It's the flu building that when we argued about the flu, it's the same building. And 3 or 4 residents spoke, don't put don't put a rooftop restaurant there. And I just didn't know if that was.
Like a few
Okay.
people came and presented and talked about. the
That's
restaurant.
Cesario or whatever.
Is that what it is?
I thought that was the name of the restaurant.
It could be, but yes, okay,
But move to 26.
We asked them to just please hold off.
okay.
The board members won't know what they're speaking to
Yeah.
because nothing has happened yet.
Got it. And here we are. Okay, anything else on slab?
No.
Okay. Stephanie, go ahead.
We have no voting, or nothing on our agenda. We did have a presenter from the 13th precinct, part of one of our buckets, for our newly renovated, committee is going to be public safety. So Ken Rice, from the 13th precinct came in and spoke to us. They're starting what's called a Q-Team pilot program. It replaced what used to be called the NCO. And their hope is to decrease like 311 calls, their parameters are a little bit more flexible, and so they're hoping that, and they're only one of 5 precincts that got asked to do this pilot program in our district, so not a lot of data yet. They actually just kicked it off as of April 14th. They have meetings every month, and one of our components with the public safety subcommittee in our committee is going to actually focus on the precincts and join those meetings as well. The other thing we went through was I don't know, I think we spoke about it a little bit, but community services and quality of life. We're going into 3 different buckets, one of homelessness and mental health, economic recovery and affordable housing, and then public safety. And kind of the same things we do in TNEB, because I'm on that board. We put everybody into a different committee that wanted to be put in a specific one, and if they weren't there, I just put them in whatever had the space. And our orientation is going to be next Monday with Marisa, Josh, Mohit and myself, with 1 hour meetings per of these 3 subcommittees to go over what topics are going to fall into each of these. The outreaches that we have in all the specifics, we're taking budget out, we have a lot more we can actually do. And so that will be next week as well. And everybody's very excited. We have quite a few new people on this committee, and people have special interests also that we're taking into consideration, and they're actively adding them on. So Mohit and I can figure out where we can put those as we start to go forward as well.
Any questions or comments for CSQ? And then to both of you, are you planning on giving this report or a version of this report at full board?
I don't need to.
Okay.
I don't think I need to.
Well, I just think, for the, like, for instance, the
Oh,
precinct,
Oh,
that might be an interesting thing
Okay.
for board members to know about, so
Okay.
we could
Okay.
add an item to the agenda that's just a committee update.
Okay.
That's not a voting item.
Okay.
Right?
okay, that's
Yeah, although we call it a pilot program, but they've now decided to do away with the pilot and just start rolling it out, so.
Oh, they did?
I'm going to.
As of last week?
Yes, so, there's a briefing for district managers on Thursday about them rolling out the Q teams in the Midtown South and
Mhm.
Midtown North. And we're, I think, many Manhattan precincts, so I can
Oh.
put it in my district manager's report.
Yeah.
Are they?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm open to either one. It just seems like a good thing that we should probably let people know about.
I think if you're just coming from the meeting,
Yeah, so maybe it makes sense for it to go into district.
Yeah,
manager
okay,
report,
that's
just
fine.
because
Yeah,
it's-
because I clearly
we'll have
won't
fresh
have that.
information.
Yeah.
Uh, you may not know this yet, but are they also, do you happen to ever roll it out for the Washington Square Park?
I can all go on Thursday.
Because as of that presentation, it was just, the 13th precinct was only one of 5 even in this, so I guess that's completely shocking.
Okay,
Thanks, Victor.
now it's your turn. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I think everyone will find it attached a copy of, or on the table in the center there, a copy of the 25-26 budget compared against our budget from last year. So just a few explanatory notes, and Lisa, please, feel free to jump in with a little additional color. The city's accounting system, OTPS codes are different. Budget allocations into a variety of categories, so you see that here. The staff salaries have increased from last year, and that's due to revised remuneration rates by contracts that are agreed upon through the city and the union. The rent has decreased, but rent is sort of special, and there's an explanation of that at the top. We don't actually directly pay rent out of our budget. It comes out of the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. They negotiate long-term rental agreements for space, and then they just allocate different amounts for a given year, but it doesn't, it effectively doesn't matter, because if they're short, they'll fix it, and if they're over, they'll take the money back. So, you can see that there's a different amount allocated this year, but it really, isn't money that we get to use in our budget. For office supplies, we anticipate the same. Heat and light, there's a slight increase. General services has decreased, but that's also a bit misleading. I think we spoke about this, that general services sometimes also captures staff salaries in a way, so you'll see there was like a large jump in the salaries, but a drop in the general services, but if you actually add those two together, the numbers are much closer. And so you can speak to it if you know more about like why it's coded that way. That isn't a big change. Supplies and materials, we anticipate the same. The telephone, while we're looking to spend the same, we actually think that will come down. There's a negotiation happening right now for a better telephone provider, and cheaper and better. So there should be a little bit more money there. And then the only other really material that no spending on furniture this year. But the real material change is other expenses. You'll see we've allocated another 5,000, but what that really is reflecting is that we got 5,000 from Keep Powers, and we can spend that how we'd like, and it hasn't been allocated. So I think that's my basic understanding from our conversation, but please feel free to add.
Well, I mean, the starting budget is really the same as last year, but what happens as the year goes on is that they underfund many of the sort of regular services in our budget, and we move surplus from the personnel budget into other than personnel services. And so what you see from, this fiscal year end is us having moved that surplus to pay for things like a land use consultant and other, and other items. We will see what our surplus is next year to see what extra monies we have that we can move over into other categories. But we're about at the same starting point. The only thing that, really jumps out at people is the staff salaries. That increase does not come out of our budget. This is a union increase that was negotiated over a year and a half, so there were several increases for staff. Over this year, the city dumped money into our budget to pay for that. District managers are not part of a union, and because of that, we did not receive our COLA increases for the last 10 years. So it was negotiated this last year, and they finally paid us what we were owed, so that's a percentage that's then compounded, so they owed me a lot of money.
Questions? No.
Just on the general services line, is that partially rectified by the increase in the staff salaries? Or what's going on there?
What are we
So-
talking about?
General services went down going for.
Right,
Or
so-
I think there's some movement.
Right, it didn't really go down. What you're, in the 2024-25 budget, that increase is us moving surplus from
Right.
our personnel budget into office use. So we had some extra money, we didn't hire within this fiscal year. We had a surplus, and so we moved money over to pay for things that the board
And you're saying that
decided they wanted.
there may be a surplus next year that would then also hit that line.
Right, I
You just don't
don't
know
think
what it
we'll have as much of a surplus next year as we had this year. So last year, if you saw the budget last year, it looked just like the 2025-2026 budget looks. That's how it started out, so.
Should we relabel the last column, like, based on actuals to indicate that's not the budget, given the, yeah, like.
That'd be helpful.
This is actually
Surplus
the spent, not the budget, is that accurate?
It's how we spent the
Got it.
budget that we had.
Yeah.
Okay,
But yeah, I think that's right.
so we'll change to that to say actuals. Okay. Nope.
Any other questions? Or no?
So what exactly is the breakdown of the general services? What are the line items within it, if I wanted to?
It's a lot of contractual things, paying for the copier lease, the phone, the Wi-Fi, water, all kinds of
Plus,
office supplies,
Plus- or the,
website maintenance, stuff like that.
That's kind of our miscellaneous category essentially.
right, but we said that part of it was staff salaries?
No, she's saying that, so in last year, we didn't hire anyone, so we had staff salary numbers. That then, because this is actual, got moved out of the staff salary line into this line.
Oh, okay.
So our base budget has not changed year over year. We
Okay,
have we're starting with the same budget that we started with last year. It looks like we have more because of the salary increase, but that's just the city dumped more money to cover what they owed. Yeah,
understood, and we are allowed to carry a surplus from one year to another, we don't
No.
have to spend it all there.
no,
We
and
have
whatever
it
we don't
back.
spend goes back to the city.
That's why we did the land use consultant.
Okay.
Right,
Right, so where does that number come in? The consultancy,
The land use consultant.
yeah,
it's under the, whatever that large number is. the
general
40
services?
Yeah.
The general services.
Yeah, because we did it.
400 line.
Okay, I see what's going on. Goodness.
So we did to it.
Yeah, two questions. One is to alleviate some of the confusion in the future. I think it'd also be great if we could add a third column that is the actual 2024-2025 budget. So we'd have three columns. Last year's budget, last year's actuals, and then this year's budget. Like
So I
that.
could pull our
We
first.
can do the
budget.
first one, maybe.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
pull the first one if I have it.
Yeah, I think that would, maybe not for this
Good
time, I don't know.
Yeah,
but-
agree.
But in future years, it might be.
Okay.
helpful.
Agree.
And then the second question would be, similar to Renal's point, I think it would be helpful if in the future for general services specifically, because it's kind of a miscellaneous item, if we could have like the top 5 expenses listed out, or, all the expenses over a value of, I don't know, pick a number, $2,500 or something.
So for that, I guess we'd have to work together because the OTPS reports didn't show it, that
Yeah.
breakdown, because it's all classified as line 400, so it just adds them all up.
I see.
So the accounting report from the city doesn't do that.
Got
So
it. So
we'd
it'd
have
be a little more.
If you have that information, I'd be happy to include a schedule.
I mean, we can pull it together.
Yeah.
We pull it together for Thursday, we can try.
Yeah, I think my suggestions are more for future years. I
Okay.
don't think it's super necessary to have it done.
Okay.
Just at a high level, if we're gonna say that the upcoming budget is roughly on par with what we spent this year that just ended. The bottom line number is down by like 60,000. Is that mainly due to the change in the rent
That's the
allocation?
rent, yeah, I mean, so they're in the process of renegotiating our lease right now. So that's why we don't have the correct number in there. So,
Okay.
I don't know what that's actually going to end up being, but that's.
So ignore pulling out the rent, everything else kind of is.
I have a question for the agenda. Ankur, do you want to, is this the one that you, because I know you present one a year, is this the one that you want to, is this the one we're presenting to the full board?
So. My recollection is, we have to present it, or we just, or did we last year present, share it?
I
don't
thought you
remember if
presented
we-
one and we just shared the rest.
I
of the
think you
paper.
presented the first, because that was your first meeting as treasurer, right?
Yeah.
It was the July meeting. Didn't you?
I think you said something.
I think you spoke.
Well, let me ask you this.
Does
Do
the
you want-
bylaw use the word, does the
I don't
bylaw use the word
particularly need
present?
So, what do the bylaws say?
Does the bylaw use the word present? I don't actually.
Or do they just say,
We could wait till September, just because we'll have a better idea for the rent.
Oh, there's that too.
I don't know.
do folks have preference? Do we want to wait?
Can I propose just taking that line item out, since that's not really coming out of our top line?
Or I could put it underneath or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rents, it's,
Or I could say, I could have in the text,
It's an
at the top saying
allocation.
rent is excluded.
right,
Yeah, it's
It's
completely
not
out
really
of our
part of our
control, to
budget,
be honest.
Yeah,
Subtotal, then rent, subtotal.
yeah, or something like that, or it.
You
It's
know,
hard
it says provided, not presented. The annual budget must be provided to the full board.
So then we could just do a handout.
Okay, great.
Because this is,
Then I'll just mention my chair's report.
yes, I can take the rent line out, and I can just have a note in there saying that it excludes rent. I don't even know if that number is useful at all, because
We don't.
we don't control it, and it's sort of arbitrary.
Yeah, I feel like that's something.
So I'll just take it out, it's more confusing. than-
Interesting to know, I like, we're always talking about.
We got other things to talk about.
General budget, like, it's slightly increased relative to last year, but as you noted, it's a bit because of the staff salary increase that was compounded and finally paid out, so.
but I
that's
would like
explainable.
the big variations, that's about.
I can make a note that the
Yeah,
staff salary.
there's really no variation other
Yeah.
than that staff
Then the-
salary, which is, that the city is paying for,
It's not our budget.
not the board.
And then we'll relabel the last line item, other expenses on. That's also misleading.
I think, I mean, I would,
Because
Well, it's budgeted for other expenses.
But it's not, if we decide to use it for consultancy, for example, then it goes under general services, so it's like,
yes, well, we can.
it's an asset.
Right,
we
maybe I
can
could say, it's available funds or something. I mean, last year was $2, this year it's the 5,000 from, yeah, so.
Where does $2 come from?
We don't know, that's what the system.
On the flat.
This is the actual. We spent it last time.
It's
Not even.
Was it Jim Morgan paying us
Obviously,
interest on our checking account?
Shipping for those chairs, you said that?
I could say unallocated funding,
Yeah. Okay.
something like that.
I would like to, because we're in a public recorded meeting, I would like to publicly thank Councilmember Powers as our only council member, contributes money to the council board. He should be recognized for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having that.
Thank you to you.
Okay. Any other questions on the budget? Okay, on the bylaws.
We have some bylaw revision proposals. I'll go through them just to give some context of where this came from. Besides it being good hygiene to revisit the bylaws fairly frequently, we were about to enter a new election cycle. Unfortunately. Got good feedback from members and from specifically members of the elections committee about how things could run a little differently and better this time. So in order to have that happen, we would need to introduce these bylaw changes at or before the July meeting and then vote on them at the September meeting so that when Brad is selecting another elections committee, which has to happen at the September meeting because we're having elections in November, that it can be in this new fashion. So that's what was driving this. And then as we talked about elections, there were a couple other sort of outstanding things that had come up that we wanted to address. So I'll go through there are four proposals. The first one, which is section 1, paragraph H or whatever, subsection H,
was to clarify, what was already in there, which is that when a member of the board is speaking to a body or a public body, about something that specifically contradicts what, in their personal capacity, that contradicts what, is a stated board position, that they should affirmatively declare that they are speaking in their personal capacity or on behalf of another organization if that's what they're speaking. This is language that actually was in the bylaws before they were revised in January or February. I believe I was on the bylaw committee. I don't think we intentionally meant to take this language out. I think this was a clerical error of some kind. So we are just putting that language back in, or very similar language. And so it's an affirmative declaration of I am speaking in my personal capacity, or I'm speaking on behalf of my church, or I'm speaking on behalf of whatever. The second item, I'll just go through all of them maybe, Brad, and then,
Yeah.
okay. The second item further articulates the responsibilities of the district manager, specifically around the management of personnel and the hiring of personnel. So as we will discuss perhaps in executive session tonight, Marisa has been working on hiring, and what the language here articulates and officially grants her the authority to do the things that she has already done, which is to create a job description and to post it. Our bylaws did not actually specify any of that, and as good hygiene we should. It also specifies that the hiring decision is one that is made at the district manager's recommendation to the chair, and the chair can bring anyone else into that decision that he or she wants. And that is what's required to make that final decision. The language that appears in these paragraphs is quite long and wordy. It is not my language. It is language that came effectively boilerplate from another community board that the law department recommended that we review. So the law department was very careful to not say, this is the language you should use, but they were like, look at what this board did, and you might want to use that. So that's what we did. So it's essentially cut and pasted. The next proposal is one that clarifies that the ethics committee, which has been much discussed by this board, is one that can be created at the chair's discretion. So as many people are aware, our bylaws require us to have an ethics committee. It's my understanding that the board has never had an ethics committee and therefore been in violation of its bylaws for time immemorial. And so it rectifies that. I think also Brad can speak to this, but I think, very frankly, Brad tried to fill an ethics committee and was unable to do so. And so if members are not interested in serving in such a capacity, maybe we shouldn't have one at all. I feel like that's something we can talk about in the future, but at least let's not make it a requirement, because we are technically in violation of our own bylaws. And the last is the entirety of the elections section amended in several ways, and I will go through and just talk through what some of these are. So at the top, you'll see the First Amendment is adding language that really clarifies that the role of the elections committee is purely administrative. I think this was always true. This is what the bylaws committee wanted from the beginning. It just sort of restates that even more strongly, that it is not here to opine on particular candidates. It's not to, add additional criteria for who can hold an office, simply to administer the election. It also reduces the number of members of the election committee from 5 to 3. We got feedback, Kevin and others, that there probably just wasn't enough work for 5 people, and 5 people were not needed. And so we reduced that to 3. In section B, you'll see an addition here of the election committee shall keep a real-time public list of declared candidates. So if you recall the way our elections process works, there's an initial 10-day period in which people can put their names up, and then that closes, and then the next opportunity to put names in is actually from the floor at the meeting. I think what the elections committee did this year is at one point, they made the spread, I think it was a few days before that 10-day window closed, they made a spreadsheet public of everyone who put their names in. And I think everyone found that really clarifying and helpful. Because previously you had to sort of wait to the meeting to say, who put their names in, I don't know, and should I nominate this person, whatever, and it just makes it totally transparent, so we know who has volunteered for what. And people can make decisions based on that, so we're putting that in the bylaws that is going to be something that we do. Skipping down to section E, there's just some language cleanup. And then the biggest change is the removal at the end of the section of the requirement that the election committee create a questionnaire. This came from feedback from members of the committee and also others, that the questionnaire itself was perhaps redundant or like wasn't clear what purpose it was serving. And it also introduced the possibility for bias. Future election committees could choose particularly biased or aggressive questions. And we were sort of comfortable with just saying, you know what, there doesn't have to be a questionnaire. Section F, it moves the deadline. So previously the questionnaire, you had from 10 days from the end of the meeting to submit it. We moved that to 10 days before the election meeting because there's no reason why your written statement needed to sit with the election committee for 20 days. Like you just have that time to write it. And then 10 days before the meeting, you send your written statement. That there's a written statement that's separate from the questionnaire. Then you send your written statement. If you choose, it's optional, to the election committee, and then they have 5 days to compile them and then send them out 5 days before the election, 5 business days before the election. The language here also re-emphasizes that the election committee doesn't have discretion to change deadlines that are set in by the bylaws and doesn't have the discretion to alter or edit those statements in any way. And then section H, it just clarifies how the election should run. This was something that Brad and Kevin and I worked out, but it just, clarifies that the election committee chair presides over the election. He or she introduces the candidates, times the speeches, tabulates the votes, announces the winners, all of that. And then lastly, because we're doing it, getting rid of paragraph J, which we no longer need because it's in reference to the elections we just had. Those are the changes.
Any questions? Any comments? Good.
I have comments on the, the elections committee, paragraph E.
Yeah.
So, there was just a little language which struck me as
Yeah.
odd and I think could be improved upon. The sentence that reads, all candidates noted by the elections committee, as well as nominees offered from the floor, who don't reject their nominations shall be announced at the regular October meeting and recorded in the board's minutes.
Yeah.
This part shall be announced, I think that should be taken out, shall be announced at the regular October meeting, because it's happening at the October meeting.
Yeah, it's redundant, like,
Yeah.
because it already says it at the top of,
Yeah.
whenever, that's the report that the committee has to give.
So I would suggest just changing the language so that it reads, all candidates noted by the elections committee, as well as nominees offered from the floor, who don't reject their nominations, shall be recorded as candidates in the board's minutes.
So I'm happy.
Okay. And then in paragraph F, why are we, I'm sorry if I'm jumping in late on this. 'cause I
No,
didn't
there's
know
no
the
way. This is why we're
text on
talking
it.
about it, and it hasn't, to be clear, I just want to say one thing to remind people of our process for bylaw revisions. So our process for bylaw revisions is that these revisions need to be sent out to the full board at or before the July meeting, so tomorrow or Thursday morning or whenever. At that point, in order to be voted on in September, at that point, they cannot be amended, or else that starts a new cycle. So that's why we're talking about it tonight, because it's an opportunity for folks to give feedback, because it hasn't gone out to the full board.
Mhm.
So, sorry, go ahead.
So in paragraph F.
Yeah.
I was on the elections committee and
Yes.
I feel like it's in the interest of the board to have, if there are these optional statements provided, that they be provided further in advance, not 5 days before the election.
Interesting.
So I would advocate for changing that so that, I kind of like that candidates had 10 days after they were actually accepted their nomination 10 days to submit the optional written statement. And then soon after that as possible to be distributed.
Yeah, the counter argument to that is one, I was trying to change things that people flagged, so that's why people hadn't flagged that. My counter argument to that, though, is in my experience on the board, there is a certain subset of board member, and it's not a critical statement, who are not focused on board matters until we get close to a board meeting. So,
Right.
so the closer to the election that we're sending out materials about the election, in my mind, I think is better because I think people forget, I'll look at that email later and they don't. So I guess that would be my logic of leaving it
Okay.
5 days.
Sumi?
Because it's 5 business days and we have our meetings on Thursdays, it'd have to be sent the Friday before the Thursday meeting. So you'd have the weekend and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Sure.
Thursday. I guess.
I don't know why it's just business days. I feel like I don't trust.
Yeah,
it.
Just
we-
change
I have to
it
look back.
the week before.
I feel like trusted. I feel like I'm sure we talked about this at the bylaw revision.
CD seven around there.
Yeah.
Do we want to change it to calendar days while we're making those bylaw or it makes sense?
Well,
Okay.
on that point, you know, just in point of clarifying, having been through this,
Please.
everyone sent us their statements and then we sat on them for some period of time.
Right.
And in the past thing, it was 2.5 weeks or something.
Right.
But now it's 5 days.
Yeah.
But I would argue even 5 days is
much.
unnecessary. I mean, even within the span of 24 hours, you know, from receiving them.
Right.
You just forward them back out.
Attach them all to one
So,
email.
so I mean, business days, 5 days, 10 days, like just for the point of clarifying it.
Yeah.
I would just say 10 business days before the November meeting and as soon as practical thereafter,
Sure.
send. You know,
Like that allows like room that.
I mean, this is practical, so maybe we give it an end deadline, like we keep the end deadline, but they could send it earlier if they wanted.
I mean, in my mind, I was doing like, okay, so I want us to cut and paste them into a single email. They may be on vacation. I don't know. So I think 5 days is good.
Without any funny business in the future and wanting to prevent that.
that's.
Not all funny business.
Wait, so am I doing it or not? I'm happy to make Kevin's change.
What if you just do both? It's like, as soon as it's practical, but no later than.
One day later.
But no later than, let's give it 2 days.
Right.
It's a holiday.
48 hours.
An exchange holiday.
Is it New York City only holiday?
What is a business day?
Yeah,
Like,
what is it?
whose business is it?
Yeah, is it an industry? Like Mondays or days off?
I don't know.
Calendar.
All right, any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Question, I don't remember, did the office send it out last time?
No, I think Tristan sent it out.
Okay,
I don't know if he did the upkeep. I think
Yeah.
you did the little upkeep one as part of the.
I did, you're right, I did.
So-
So I'll send this out tomorrow to the board.
That works, yeah. Or you can give it to Milan to include in like the general.
Okay.
I mean, I'm
Or
happy to
email.
send it out, we just didn't do that last.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to send it out too. I don't want to confuse people, and I'll just make it clear, we are not voting on this on Thursday, we are voting on this in September.
Yeah, I'll include my chair's report just as a clarity for the new members.
Right.
Okay. On to new business. I have one, which is I emailed all of you who are committee chairs or vice chairs, offering a technology training from the board for using Zoom, Google Drives, etc. I encourage you all to, and I did, to take the board up on that.
When will that be?
I encourage you to reach out to the board office to
Oh,
set that
okay,
up. So
okay.
whenever you want it to be, is what
Okay.
it is.
I definitely need that.
Board.
Nope, it was sent to everyone. So we're an equal opportunity.
I know, like.
I sent it with my reminder.
Oh,
It was like, there's a 2-part email and then it's part 2.
There
I don't
are
have anything for you for
resources
June 22nd.
available to you that many
Uh,
committee chairs are not taking advantage of. So this is an
2
opportunity
reminders,
to
okay.
learn about those resources and use them more effectively
just
for
for
your
that.
committee work.
Okay. You're on,
I have new business.
go for it.
This is for committee chairs, but I realize we only have 2. I just want to say that something that David Sigmund started doing, which is like asking people who had written resolutions to present them instead of having chairs present them. I would encourage other chairs to consider that. Something that I'm gonna think about in my new role is like pipelines to leadership and, you know, what things look like with term limits and turnover. And it's a great way to sort of let people learn how to defend a resolution and answer questions about it. So I think it's a good leadership and growth opportunity. So I encourage chairs to do that.
So I would add a condition to that, which is please let me know ahead of time, because also sometimes these meetings go long or they're
Fair.
difficult, so I don't want it to be sort of a revolving door up there
Fair.
on meetings where we might, run long, but I'm, like. This coming meeting, maybe it's a little shorter, you could encourage someone to do that if they wanted to.
Fair.
Any other new business?
I mentioned the budget task force.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Great. So I have a couple members, very exciting. We're on three. The fact that people sign up for this is crazy. So Catherine, Mike Greeley, and Melissa Stewart have all raised their hands, which is fantastic. Such a great starting group.
Alice should not.
Oh, Alice, okay. Fantastic, thank you. Looking to get started on assigning silos, reviewing process and timelines, things like that. But I wanted to chat about a community survey. Did we do one last year?
We did do one for the budget last year. No.
I know we've done one previously with
It's
that.
Previous, but we didn't do it last year.
Okay. That's something we would be interested in.
Great
doing.
idea.
Yes,
Love it.
very good.
I mean, it's hard to get people to participate, but maybe we can get the council members to push it out or.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the plan would be to get that out probably by the end of the month so that we could collect data in August, get our finalized draft budget requests in September. And Marisa, you reminded me the budget consultations are usually August-y, September-y, right?
They're crunched in September.
Yeah, I remember. It's like
Right.
hell
And
week, basically.
Yes, I don't know what's going on with OMB. We usually are
Have a draft.
having a lot of back and forth with them and it's been crickets, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure what's happening.
It's still October 31 deadline, right?
Yeah, we always request an extension just because of the way our
Board
our
meetings,
meeting
yeah.
falls, and we get it, so that's fine, but it's your it's your November cycle meeting
Yeah.
that you
Got
will need to, finalize what you're presenting to the board.
Yeah, we always said October in Vex, but it was always secretly November.
Right.
Yeah. that's true. I haven't been on Bex in a bit, so I'm like trying to get back up to speed. Great. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, any other new business? Okay, so now I'm going to request a motion to move into executive session to discuss our new community. The coordinator, community coordinator.
Motion to move to exec.
Yes, a second, right, that to a vote, please.
Sure. Let me get the right.
We're just doing I.
Can we do a show of
Yeah, we
hands?
did show
We can
hands,
just do
right,
it.
we don't have to do this, all right,
Yeah.
favor.
Great.
Great,
Awesome.
okay, for those, none of you who are online,